What does success look like?
I think what it looks like is me being able to turn to my wife and say, "Hey, we're going to leave for 2 weeks, and I'm not gonna look back." 3 years of business, I've never had that freedom yet.
For many entrepreneurs, taking time off is a totally foreign concept. But what if your business could run so smoothly that you could disappear for 2 weeks and it wouldn't even skip a beat? Today, I'm talking with James Winters, a serial entrepreneur whose core business is stove installation, chimney cleaning, and home cleaning services. And after 23 years of running the show, James is ready for a new kind of freedom, one where his business thrives even when he's not there. So, in this live coaching conversation, we dig into the systems, the habits, and the leadership mindset that James needs to build for a self sustaining company and the fears that come with letting go. What's one thing that you would love to walk away with insight on today that matters most?
Yeah, I gave that some thought. We well, part of our 2026 mission, we had a team meeting about a week and a half ago. It's kind of the whole theme of this year is kind of clean up the company. So, I'm talking fundamentally from our closets, our basement, our shelves, and we've already started our office space, our software. We're switching to different software. I don't know if I told you that. Um, and so, yeah, we've moved over to House Call Pro. They gave us a free year trial, so and we love it. It's way more suitable. We're still locked in for 14 months to 12 more months with Service Titan, but uh, anyways, so the whole that's kind of the whole. It's actually our family's theme. Also, is kind of we've spent a lot of time in ancillary auxiliary things, and we need to get kind of back to square one and take care of steward the things the Lord's given us to steward really well. So I just kind of carried that over into our business. And so and recognizing that I've got a lot of I would say anywhere from mundane tasks to technical tasks to a variety of um, just things to stay busy with that I can't personally attend to, and I've been trying to do that. That's what I've been trying to be the filler, the in the molding. So, so trying to do too many wear too many hats, to take on too many responsibilities. So what we want to do this year is actually I've created a chart of responsibilities and I've assigned different tasks to each of the employees, and it's going to empower them in kind of a micro level, and it's going to make them a micro manager over a certain thing. So each employee will end up managing that area, and they'll manage, and so by effect, they'll be kind of a manager to everybody else in that department, and so it gives a little bit of sense of like, wow, this is what it's like to manage something and to steward it and to take good care of it. And so we haven't implemented this yet. So that's the challenge that we're looking at doing is figuring out a good logistics on how to keep track of all that and make sure everybody's doing what their new assignments are. So so the goal is, a lot of companies' goals are like, hey, we're gonna take our revenue from this baseline and we're gonna go 20% more this year. That's I I've never really made that as a chief goal. I've always looked internally that if we meet our internal goals of becoming better stewards of what we have, more concerned with our customer care, that we perform our work better, that there's a natural impetus behind that, and the company just organically grows. And so that doesn't mean we don't have some financial goals, of course, but we still do. we still do home shows and we still do some events to where we put ourselves out there, but and we do some advertising. But and we actually have a plan for that this year. We're going to meet with a consultant. You and I both know who he is. And he's going to help us get on a good plan to implement some of our financial goals. But the chief goal is operational, is to become operationally tidy and shore up our ship.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
to use the
Okay.
expression. So that's kind of the main thing. It's like, so how do we take these ideas and make them effective to where we're not just like, it's not, we're not just I'm not just handing out titles, but I'm handing out true responsibilities that actually have a real time impact
Yeah.
on the way we operate. So, which
Yeah.
hopefully will take some stress off of myself, and I can do my part of the job as the main owner better.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and yeah,
Okay.
if that
So
makes
would it be okay for me to ask you a few questions that
yeah,
will help you maybe get a little bit more clarity around not only how to do that, but also what winning looks like?
okay.
So for a moment, I want you to like put yourself 1 year in the future.
Mhm.
You and I are talking again. It's January of 2027, which you and I both know will be here before we know it. What does success look like? You're standing in January, you look back at the year and you go, man, what an awesome year. Now my life looks like, now the business looks like describe that to me. What's it look like?
I think what it looks like is me being able to turn to my wife and say, "Hey, we're going to leave for 2 weeks, and I'm not gonna look back." I'm not gonna call the office, if somebody gets injured or a major catastrophe, I'd want to know. But to know that all the operational logistics are going to stay in focus and to run at optimum, um, and not have to think about it or worry about it. We are not at that place right now. I find myself still having to check in with my team routinely while I'm gone. I still get a number of texts, still check emails, and I'd like to be able to get to a place where, and that's part of, because there's so many little any business owner, especially when you have employees and you have trucks and you have a warehouse and you have equipment, and that's what we're going to allocate. Like, we're going to have an equipment manager, we're going to have a truck manager, all these things. And so, and they're going to potentially have a budget that they just know that hey, I don't have to ask for permission to go buy this part, or get this. I can take the truck in for repair because James is already going to say yes. So they're going to have some authority, and we're going to set some boundaries on that. So yeah, so in 1 year, that would be incredible. That'd be a good earmark to say, hey, I feel like, barring any major disaster, I could leave potentially and go on a missions trip and not have to consume my thoughts with what's going on at work. So in the 23 years of business, I've never had that freedom yet. So
Wow.
yeah.
How will that feel?
I know my wife would think it's amazing. And because she can tell when I'm more wholeheartedly dedicated to a family trip or a missions trip versus when I'm split. So,
And you're
uh,
distracted mentally.
I guess it's equivalent to someone, and, I mean, a lot of us deal with chronic pain. It would be like, what's it like to not have that pain?
Mhm.
Until it happens, I won't be able to fully describe it. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure for a little while you're thinking, "Oh, the pain, it's just gone temporarily, it's gonna come back," so I'm sure there's some of that, but, ultimately, yeah, I'm sure it's quite remarkable, that freedom for sure, so, yeah.
So success for you is ultimately going to be measured by you can step away for 2 weeks and trust that your team has got things under control, that they're running things the way that James would run things, and that you're not worried or distracted while you're enjoying time with your family, with your wife, on the mission trip or whatever you take that time to do.
Yeah,
Does that
and
sound right?
that's yeah, and I would say another point to that would be if I came back and the team felt like it wasn't stressful. because if it
Okay.
felt like, hey, we were just, we were just barely holding this thing together and we were patching up the holes the whole time and the ship was about to sink, but we didn't want to call you because we know that that was your goal. That's not achieving anything. I mean, yes, I get to enjoy 2 weeks of reprieve, but then I come back and now I'm spending a month repairing. So that would be the other major component of it, is that the team, it was like, hey, this system's working. Yeah, maybe there was a couple hiccups, but for the most part, and a sense of pride behind it, like, hey, look, we did this. Like, hey, we don't really need you. We don't need you. Hyperbole, of course, but yeah. So those would be the two earmarks of success, I think, in that
Yeah.
arena. So
Okay. So now that we've got that pinned down, what do you think the biggest hurdles are or the biggest roadblocks are to achieving that?
I think it's me taking the time to make sure it happens, because that's my pitfall. I'm a macro visionary, which, I think in macro terms, which gets things established quickly. My wife says that when I get an idea, she's like, she just like, it's terrifying to her how quickly I put something into place and into action. But I often overlook a lot of the details. And so that's part of my 26 goal, is to become more detail oriented. So, and not setting up too many goals that they can't be reached, where at least if I set up 2 or 3 goals, I'm like, this, and it's even on a personal level. I've got some personal goals that way. I'm going to try not to be so divided in my mental capacity and what I study and think on, in my personal time. Because unlike you, we like everything. We want to know everything about everything. And so, and so to take some time, say, you know what, I'm just going to brush aside some of these other issues and just really focus. And so that's what I need to really say. This is my mission, and this is what I need to do. And even my office lady today, she says, "Hey, we had that meeting a week and a half ago. When's that going to happen?" So, I guess encouraging her to make sure, to stay on top of, keep putting pressure. I guess say, hey, it's okay to put some pressure on me, because I come up with these ideas and I'll sometimes write out the whole plan, and then I just don't activate it. You know, so
Yep.
yeah, that's a
Okay.
big one.
So making time for it. What else?
And then I think some coaching with that, you know, laying out expectations, being a good communicator on the expectations. So I got to convey to the team members, like, I don't just hand them a clipboard and say, here's your new assignments. It's like, hey, sit down with them for the first time for 10, 15 minutes, check what they're doing for a while. Don't just assume they're doing it. And then maybe every couple weeks for the first 6 months, say, hey, I'm just going to do a quick 5 minute check in. How do you feel this is going? Is this, do you take any ownership in this? Has this changed your perspective on, because that's part of it. I want, I have a pretty darn good crew right now. Most of these guys are invested. I have several guys I can see staying. I have one guy that's been here 16 years. Another he's going into his sixth or seventh. Now I've got a couple of young guys in their early 20s that could potentially stick with us a long time, particularly one of them, and maybe another one. And so if we can establish these things now where they feel like they have some ownership and some say, and it feels like, hey, I'm kind of an owner in this business in respects, you know, then I think there's some excitement behind that.
All right. So coaching the team. What else?
Oh, you're gonna make me. I haven't thought this hard about it. How about you ask another question? Those are the two big ones. I really think. Unless you've got something that comes to mind.
No, I don't have. I wasn't trying to lead you to anything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Sometimes that what else question makes you go, oh, I don't know. Is there anything? And then you finally hit the gold.
yeah,
So
and that may very well happen. And so I don't know about you. I'm not great at designing on paper anything. I'm a in the moment, like I walk into a space and I start if you're working on a room design or even my showroom or something like that, I take a lot of pride in how it looks and how it feels, and that we get a lot of compliments from our customers. Hey, this feels like a home. It's very comfortable. And, it didn't just, it didn't just happen. Like I stand in that room. I'm like, what can I arrange to make it a comfortable environment? And so, that's just kind of how my mental acuity works. I have to be in the space. I have to start something. And then it's kind of like the problems kind of present themselves, or the new focus presents itself. And I've just kinda learned to be okay with that. It's like, I don't have all the answers. I'm trying to learn to be more of a detailed thinker up front, but there's people that are really good at that. Like, they can just iron everything out on paper ahead of time. I'm just not that person. So, I'm sure as we implement and as we go into this, some of it will be, you know, it'll be revealed.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, sounds a little
Okay, so
ambiguous.
no, so let's see if we can walk that line a little bit. So on the one hand, you say there are people that are good paper planners, and for them, if they only stay in their little paper world, they neglect some of the realities that can only be bumped into through experience. And then on the other side, you've got people who play it fast and loose. This is, I think, sort of your tendency, right? Is you want to stand in the space, breathe the air, and you're going to figure it out as you go. And usually it works out pretty well. Um, but sometimes that means that, well, actually, I'm going to ask you, I'm not going to tell you what I think it means. How do other people, maybe on your team, experience that side of the spectrum?
I think it causes, some anxiety and some frustration. Um, because it does seem like people in general like to know the plan. Yeah, I mean, not everybody. There are some personality types that are just fly as you go, and let the wind push you
Sure.
whatever direction. But I have a bunch of guys that I have learned over the years, like they want to come into the office and they want everything laid out, and they want to know what they're doing. They don't want to have to envision it or imagine it, and a lot of that's because there's a fear of getting it wrong. Like if I try to step out and do something I think my boss wants me to do and he doesn't approve of it, then I'm going to be reprimanded for that, and that's gonna be a harsh reality. So, um, yeah, I do think that that creates some, consternation that way. So, uh, I would like to improve that. So,
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Very good. All right. So then let me lead you to a couple of things, and then we'll talk maybe about tactics. But first, you said that one of the biggest hurdles is you making time for this.
yeah,
Actually making time, not just to like have the idea and declare this is the year of cleaning the company and your family and your life, but actually putting it into practice. So what would need to be true for you to start making the time for it, as you said?
it's a yeah, making a concerted actual probably put it on the calendar, like, I'm going to spend X amount of time this many days a week working on this program. As it is right now, I'm just sort of slotting in the
Mm,
development of this, and I'm not very well programmed to pin myself down on time. And so
yeah,
uh, that's what needs to happen. Um, I just have to nail down exact times and put it on the calendar, say from 9 to 10 on this day, you do the best
yeah.
you can to meet that goal. So,
Okay, so let me push you. When is that going to be? When's the first one?
um, that's a great question. Um, I'm going to say next Monday.
Okay. What time next Monday?
Well, Mondays until about 10 o'clock can be really chaotic. So I'm going to put a 10 to 11 o'clock time frame on that.
You think that's enough time?
Well, it's about all I can allocate in a day, about an hour. Yeah. And there's a lot to do for that. And
Hmm.
I do know that it's a big task. But there's stuff I can do within an hour that can, if I have a concentrated hour, I can stay very focused. Um,
Okay. So,
You know,
where will that happen? Like, are you sitting in a space right now where you're gonna have 0 distractions, or
um,
what's that gonna look like?
yeah, I mean, my office is like I don't share a full-time space anymore with an office person. That person moved into another corner of the building. So I do have some solitude there. I have another guy that's
Okay.
in there. I have another guy that's in there till about 9 or 9:30, and then he's out for the day. So yeah,
So you can close the door, put a sign on it that says,
I can.
"James is not here."
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Alright. Can I challenge you on something?
Of course.
You sure?
Well, we'll have to hear what the challenge is.
Well, I'm gonna challenge you. You might not like it. Um, you said you want 2026 to be the year of cleaning up the company, and then you had some, some stuff around that physically. You wanna move your software, your operations sort of stuff, and, you wanna do this with your family as well, which we're not talking about today, but, this is the most important thing that you wanna accomplish this year. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So, do you think that for the single most important thing that you want to accomplish this year, squeezing 1 hour in each week is gonna get you,
Oh no, I
the
think I
results
think
that
I
you
did.
want?
Maybe I didn't communicate that. I said a couple of days a week, 2 to 3 days a week.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay. So you think you could do that consistently, that 1 hour?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, fair.
I and
Um,
I don't do much work from home, but there's times when our kids are involved in some karate programs, and my wife's busy. Sometimes I'll do some thinking on stuff like this, and I'll sit down, I'll make notes and lists, and like, okay, I'm not gonna delve too deep into this today, but I'll get a kind of a basic framework of like I like lists, and I like to once I put it on a list for some reason it becomes ingrained in my thinking. I often don't even have to look back at the list, and a week later I'll look back. I'm like, oh, I got this and that and this, but until it gets on a list, um, that's very helpful, and I'll do that a lot in the evenings. So, and it helps me to have a focus. I get a lot of anxiety if I walk in and I don't have a marching order for myself, because there's so many things to do. So I try to make a priority list every single day I come to work, and I keep it right there on a 3 by 5 card all day, and I try to cross stuff off as I go through it. So, but I'm still in the field part time. I'm not totally in the office, so there's days my list doesn't go anywhere because I get an emergency call or something like that. So
so I'm gonna take off the, like, question asker hat and put on the teacher hat for just a minute. Is that alright with you?
sure.
Okay. So, something that radically changed in my thinking over the last 6 months, I used to set goals, break them into milestones, and then, approach those goals. They were important goals. I thought through them pretty well, and even had a plan for them, and just kind of thought, well, if I stay on track with the milestones, then I'm going to achieve the thing that I want, say at the end of the quarter or the end of the year. And I got mediocre results. Usually I probably didn't get as far as I wanted to. Sometimes it just felt like a total flop. And the thing that totally shifted for me in the last 6 months was I read a book called The 12-Week Year. And in that, he argues that it's obvious in hindsight, but setting goals is not magic. They don't complete themselves, they don't achieve themselves. And so what he argues is, yes, set the goal, but the goal actually isn't as important as defining the actions that we must take on a repeatable, regular, daily, weekly basis in order to achieve that result. Sort of like if I wanted to increase my bench weight at the gym, let's say, I wanted to get up to 230. Um, that is a wish unless it has a plan that's acted upon. And so I could actually measure the likelihood of me achieving that result by probably doing something like, well, how many times did I go to the gym and lift this week? And if my goal was, well, I think I probably need to do three 1 hour sessions each week in order to hit that. Now I have something inherently measurable that I can check in on every single week. did I go to the gym for 3 1-hour sessions? If the answer is no, I'm probably not gonna hit the goal. If the answer is yes, then I have a high likelihood of actually doing it. So, if we begin to measure actions rather than, sort of anecdotally, am I getting closer to the goal? We have a better metric and feedback system for ourselves. So what would that look like for you, in this thing that you're trying to pursue this year?
Well, I think we stated it, setting up a specific time frame that's regimented, you know, and if and then making a caveat if it shifts for some reason I can't meet that timeline, then I make sure I make up for it, like a makeup appointment. Just like, my kids go to piano, and if they miss a lesson or the teacher's sick, like, they make it up, and they still maybe they get 2 of those in a week, but it's still very valuable, and so I could be routine and consistent, in that. Maybe adding another layer of accountability, asking another one of my staff members, "Hey, here's the 3 times I'm gonna do this, and if you don't see me around the office for a week, you might check in and say, "Hey, did you spend those 3 3 different 3 different hours," or whatever. And there and in this and this there's like I think there's the time invested to get this implemented, and then it's gonna look differently because this is more like a program, like changing some internal ways we do business. It's like changing software. You're gonna spend a couple months acclimating, learning the ins and outs, and then it becomes fluid. And that's, so then I think at that point, then you reassess, like, is this working? If, then you start to work out the mechanics of that program or that system. So,
So, in concrete terms, if you were to make up yourself a little scorecard and you could evaluate yourself on it at the end of every week, what would that scorecard look like? And let's say that for the sake of simplicity, it's pretty much the same investment every week.
yeah, I mean, I guess it'd just be a ratio, and you assign a letter grade to it, like you would in school. I don't know, if you have 3 appointments, if you hit all 3, you get an A, you hit 2 of them, decelerates obviously, or you give yourself a percentage, like, 'cause that's 3 quarters. So, I got 100%, I got 30%, 70%, so 30% is not even passing, right? So you gotta do at least 2 to pass.
So I'll share mine. Like I have, something very similar to yours over here, and every single morning I'm looking at it. One of the things that I'm challenging myself to do every single week is spend at least 4 hours on customer relationship management. Like I've got to schedule that in and get 4 hours in of intentional, undistracted time. And then there's a big project that I want to complete by the end of the quarter. So I have to spend at least 3 hours that week devoted completely to that project. And just like you said, at the end of the week, I'm going to score myself on did I get those 4 hours in or not? Did I get those 3 hours in or not? And the data says that if you hit 80% on that, that you are very likely to achieve the goal by the end. So I would just challenge you, like, hey, build a scorecard for yourself and score yourself on it. Not don't outsource the accountability. Like keep it for yourself. And I mean, you could have your team check in on you as well, but hold yourself accountable to it. Okay, so let me challenge you and well, not challenge you, but encourage you to think about two more things. So I think on your scorecard list, there should also be regular meetings with your team, probably to the tune of, I would suggest, and I know this is gonna, I know you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm gonna do this. Yeah, that's the challenge. I think you need at least 30 minutes, with each person that you're gonna delegate to every single week. Like I think you mentioned 15 minutes here or 5 minutes there. I'm just gonna guess that's probably not gonna be enough when you're trying to get people to step into some whole new levels of accountability and responsibility that they haven't had before. How do you react to that?
Um, I I think it depends on the scale on which they're doing. I mean, some of these things are very mundane and minor, and I wouldn't know what
Okay.
to talk about for a half an hour.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna create a truck schedule, a maintenance schedule, and so we can schedule that all out, and discuss when that's going to happen, the frequency of that, and the checklists that go along with that. And so that
Hmm.
initial conversation would take, you know, at some time. Um, but it'll be pretty straightforward. Like it's not it's kind of almost mindless. It's like it's just routine stuff. So yeah, so
Okay,
check.
I'm gonna stop you for a second. I love this about you. You are one of the most optimistic people I know, and I love that about you, James. Don't change. Um, are you familiar with the term curse of knowledge?
Yep.
Okay, so I think you're operating out of the curse of knowledge here. Uh, meaning it seems mundane, it seems easy to you because you've been doing it for so many years. Like you could do it in your sleep. You don't even think about it. But whoever's going to pick this up, this is new, and they don't have the knowledge that you have, the experience that you have. So don't fall for the trap of assuming that they know all the things that are between your ears. Like you've accumulated that knowledge through a lot of smashed fingers and a lot of sweat and blood and tears that they haven't had the benefit of yet. And they're not going to just like automatically download all of your stuff. They're going to need a lot more time than I'm guessing you think it's going to take for them to actually do the work the way you want it done.
Right. And I'm not just pulling names out of a hat and throwing it down with an assignment. Like that particular assignment is going to go to a guy who's got
To
vast
fit somebody, yeah.
vast mechanical background. He and I have already been talking about this for a year. It's just a matter of like, hey, we just need to get this on the books and where you start doing it. And he's a really good communicator already. So I'm trying to pick things that work within different guys' wheelhouse. That it's not going to be too much of a stretch. It's like, well, I'm going to take you way out of your element and ask you to do something you've never done before. These are these are things that are already sort of happening with the crew at large, but I'm just going to narrow it down to like one person's main responsibility. Um, so yeah. So I hear what you're saying. I guess when you say optimistic, I'm it's more of a realism. Like I I I don't like to set myself or anybody up for failure. So
Right.
I don't want the bar so high. And I know it sounds terrible. I want the bar high, but I also want it
Yeah,
to be,
you want the bar high.
I want it to be
Yes.
attainable. And so, um, and, and yeah, I, if I were 100% in the office, I think I could, I could be a little more, regimented. But at this point, I'm not. I don't have another, operations person, although we've kind of got that in the works right now. We've got another person involved. We have another business that we just merged with ours, and that person running that business is going to take on some of our
Oh,
operations.
cool.
So, yeah. So,
Congratulations. That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So, and he's a sharp guy, and he's been in business himself for years and years, and I'm hoping to hand some of this off to him. So some of these meetings, like I'm like, hey, I'm gonna have this guy go do those 15-minute check-ins at some point.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm still gonna push you just a little bit. I know this is a little bit uncomfortable. I'm just gonna push you to do that curse of knowledge is still gonna bite you at some point because I understand you're trying to get people who already have a proclivity for some of those skills.
Right.
But you as the business owner, you think differently about the roles that you're delegating, the results that you want, and if you aren't very extremely clear about exactly what you want and how
Mhm.
you want it, you're leaving a lot on the table for them to decide. And uh, I don't think you're going to fall into that trap, but that's going to take time and it's going to take repetition.
Right.
And so it's going to probably take more time than you would like it to really delegate this in a way that gets you the results that you want long
Sure.
term.
Sure.
But oh my goodness, James, I mean, the vision that you talked about for 2027, totally worth it, right? Like you get to get away with Daryl and the kids and not think about you not be
Yeah.
stressed
Or
or worried.
or just stay
That's
or
worth
just stay home and work on my house.
or staying at home and working on your house. That's gonna be so worth it to not to be stressed out by what am I missing right now? Is the team gonna, survive?
Right.
You're gonna be confident. by then. Which brings me to my last point. How could you stress test this system well before we get to a year out?
I mean, we could run um, a simulation of sorts and say,
Okay.
you
What
know,
would that look like?
well, I mean, I could take 2 days off and say I'm going to be at home, still in the area, and I'm going to be hands off. And let's see if we're at the point where I can be gone 2 days and be completely hands off. And let's pretend I'm in uh, in the Amazon. You can only
Yep.
get out. You can only get out with with satellite,
Satellite phone.
right? So, and that's not going to happen. So, yeah. So we could stress test it that way. I think that would really be the only way to do it, is to remove myself, because when the owner's there, I mean, the reliance is there. I mean, it's just natural. So, um, so yeah. So, and I think that can be kind of a fun, exciting goal for the team. Like, hey, let's see if we can do this. Like, can we, like, if James were in the hospital tomorrow and we had to provide for his family through this company, to provide for him and his kids, could we take up that task? Could we take up that challenge and run the company for him? And he's laid up, Lord willing, I never fall off the house, but say I did, and I'm in the hospital for 3 or 4 months, and I can't run the company. So, um, yeah, that would be incredible.
Okay, you nailed it. So now I'm gonna push you to define that. When? Like, when's the reasonable first time for you to stress test that?
Well, there's a small caveat. We come into our very slow season for the next 2 months. Often my guys are on unemployment, so a lot of this will not be, and I guess that's part of why I don't feel this deep urgency, because most of them are going to be off once we hit February. That's always our, I mean, I wouldn't say we're closed town, but most of our services are out of commission at that point. And so I'm hoping by, before we hit our stride in June, which is our big blast. So in between the relaunch, early April through May, a month or two, probably 2, 3 months, we should be able to have the mechanics of this operating.
So would it make sense to have them working through this? I mean, not fully employed maybe, but for a certain number of hours for the next couple of months, take advantage of the slow time to really dial these things in so that there's no high opportunity cost
So
later.
I'm waiting for the weather, obviously, but once we hit the weather, I am planning to do some in-house training. Our guys also go through certifications. We've got some guys ready in March to go do that. I've got a bunch of ongoing training. Um, and so, yes, I'm hoping to see them over the course. I mean, there's a possibility we work all the way through. It has happened before. But historically, we have 4 to 8 weeks off, almost, and I'm not 100% off, but pretty close. So over that period, I do anticipate some in-house, um, you bringing the guys back in, to do some of this. Yeah. Yeah. So that could be a good idea to try to implement some of it at that time. So,
Let me propose something to you. I did this with another client last year actually. He was in a very, very similar spot to you. He works on a cattle ranch, and like animals don't wait. They don't care whether or not you want a vacation. They have to be taken care of. So he set a goal halfway through the year to take a 4-day uh, vacation for like the first time ever with his wife and his kids, and they were going to take another one later in the year. And before that, we tried to set up something in the spring where he needed to take like one long weekend and just trust other people. But what that forced him to do was go, okay, we already bought the tickets. Like we are going to this other place. Uh, I don't want to have to cancel that trip. I don't want to have to, eat the cost of those tickets. So by April, whatever it was, I've got to be ready for a long weekend, and my team's got to be ready. It put a lot of pressure on him in a good way to build those systems early. And then we set a longer one, right, in the middle of the year in the summer. And it was like a 1 week thing. And our goal was for him to be able to take 2 weeks off. And so each time he had like this, advanced step up into, I'm going to stress test the system. I'll tell you what, stuff breaks. Of course it does, right? But that's the whole point. You want to see how the team handles it. You want to take those little opportunities to solve and fix all of those little things so that the next time around it goes a little bit better. So you don't have to do it with me here, but I would suggest that before the end of the week, you sit down with Darylyn and you guys schedule, a couple of weeks throughout the year that scaffold you towards that end game of, hey, I want to take 2 weeks off and be totally confident the team's got it. And then commit to them and kind of set them as like an immovable target that you have to be ready for. Because, you're probably like me, and the 11th hour is pretty amazing when we get stuff done sometimes, right?
Yeah, for sure.
How does that sound to you?
No, I like the sound of it. And I think that's I've got to move from the ethereal to like this could actually happen, and that is part of my hang up. You say I'm optimistic, but I'm also terrified to leave the team alone. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. And that's not going to change overnight, right? It's going to change with a lot of small victories.
yeah, no, it's a year I'm really looking forward to making some major strides. We made some good changes last year. Um, building into our team some value and some ethics, I would say, more so than we've ever had, and I'm seeing that play out. We've spent a lot of time in meetings talking about ethics. I explain how business works, what it's like from my perspective, what I'm seeing, and I just put them in my shoes sometimes. I go, I want you to know what I deal with every day, and when at the end of the day, there's if I've got 9 people out there and I've got 5 complaints, it's not against you, it's against me. And I don't burden them with that. I just make it a reality. And then we talk through the finances of, man hours, what things cost, and if they make a mistake and have to go back, what that costs the company, so on and so forth. And so and then let them kind of chime in and add their perspective, and then ask them questions on ethics and what what should things how should the company be presented in the community, how should it look like, um, i- with the customer, what's our perception, what do we want our perception to be, and that's kind of something new for me. I'm used to just talking at them. I'm learning more to ask questions, and getting their insight.
I am so encouraged by that. I mean, as you're saying that, I go, wow, I'm talking to a different James than the last time that you and I connected around business stuff. Way to go.
Yeah. Well,
Awesome.
by God's
Well,
grace.
James, of course, by God's grace. Is there anything else that you would like to dig into today? Or, I mean, tell me one thing that was most helpful here so far.
Uh, I think kind of nailing myself down, committing myself to these principles, not just having a pipe dream, and
Hmm.
and I'm usually pretty good about a partial implementation. I never go the full distance. We've written a lot of SOPs. And that I did think about bringing that up today because that's part of the grander scheme of this whole mechanics of making sure SOPs, and that's another big part of it that I've got to work on this year is actually having a uniform process. I have them all written out for the most part, and we talk about them, but then I check in with the teams. I'm like, "Are you following the SOP?" And it's pretty rare that, like, you know, it's 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 I don't get a deep compliance on SOPs, and so sometimes I think maybe they're not. Maybe it's more like I just teach principles and ethics, and we have really strong ethics and really good principles in the field, and maybe the regimented step-by-step SOP isn't the best way to go. Maybe today's culture just can't relate to that. You know, so I thought that might be another good topic to get into, but
Let's address that super fast, and then I'll pray for you. I think you inadvertently backed into the answer that we just kind of didn't take time for earlier. If I met for my team for 30 minutes every week, I don't know what we talk about. You talk about that
yeah,
because I think that the reason that we have SOPs, I get it. We don't want to be like the pointy-haired boss, the Dilbert boss that makes everybody just do extra work, right? But until I trust my team to do things competently and consistently, you're gonna follow the checklist. This is not optional. It's the condition
Yeah.
of you remaining employed and being in this role. And so that's part of my conversation when I meet with my team is, hey, show me your work. Are you actually adhering to this? And if you're not, well, then we're having a different conversation because at some point it's not training anymore, it's defiance. And that's not going to work here. So I have to be willing to have some of those hard conversations, which is why I need the 30-minute
Oh yeah.
sessions.
No, I could do 30 minutes with the whole team, no problem, twice a week.
Well, I mean, I'm talking on an individual basis because there's a difference there in that
Well,
one-on-one.
yeah, if we're going beyond that new assignment and we're just using the time, partial new assignment, partial um, general principles and expectations, yeah, for sure, a half hour wouldn't be hard to fit. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially if you're getting feedback from them. So,
Yeah, it's got to be two-way. You're right.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, James, would it be okay for me to pray for you?
of course.
All right. All right. Well, Lord, I thank you for my time with James this afternoon. God, I thank you for the business that you have given him stewardship over and the team that you have blessed him to grow. God, he has led for so long, and you've brought great people onto his team. And we praise you and thank you for this. And as he leads his team and his family into this year of cleaning things up, pray that you would bless the work of his hands, that you would make him a wise leader, a wise steward of the business that you've entrusted to him, that you would cause flourishing, not just financially, although, of course, we ask for a profitable year, but even more than that, God, we ask that James would build a business that supports the life that he wants to live, that you've called him to live, and that that business would bless his family, the legacy that he is building, that it would bless the community that you've planted him in, and that the team members that he has even would grow into greater responsibility and greater roles as they demonstrate their abilities and their growth. So God, we love you and we thank you for this time. It's in Christ Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Alrighty. Thanks, James, so much for taking the time to be here.
Thank you, Zach.
James is a visionary with a strong work ethic and a heart to steward what God has given him. But like many founders, he's found himself just too embedded in the day-to-day. His breakthrough moment came in naming the real goal, to actually step away and let others lead, without fear and without chaos. That kind of freedom isn't just possible, it's worth building toward. So what would it look like for your business to run without you for a week, or even 2 weeks? What systems and mindsets and people would you need to have in place? If you're ready to build a business that doesn't depend all on you and on your constant presence, then let's talk. You can schedule a 15-minute chat with me, or you can apply to be coached right here live on the show. Both of the links are in the show notes. Now, let me leave you with this benediction. May you prepare your work in the field and get everything ready, just as Proverbs 24:27 calls us to do. Now, may you steward your business with wisdom, delegate with clarity, and trust your team to carry the weight with you. And then as you build, may you find the freedom to step away, knowing that the house will stand even when you rest. I'll see you next time.